Welcome to Leverage Your Influence podcast, where we talk to amazing people who have leveraged their influence, impact, and income through podcasting. Today, we are talking to an amazing man who is an Emmy Award-winning media advisor who has helped launch the careers of Emmy Award-winning stars and build brands that have standed the test of time. We welcome today Mr. Vinnie Potestivo. How are you doing, man?
Yo, I'm tuned in, man. This sounds like a great guest. I can't wait to see what this guy brings to the table. I hope he brings his A game.
Man, he's gonna bring all the heat, and as the Gen Z folks say, he's about to cook. He's about to cook.
Yeah, man. All right.
So your journey is fascinating. Tell us an overview of how you got into the MTV space and advising stars. Where did that all begin?
Oh, I believed in myself when no one else did. That's the truth. I've never answered the question that bluntly before, but like I can give a lot of semantics, a lot of small steps. I wanted to get into TV. No one thought that that was like a real career. So I called up the local cable access channel when I was a 15-year-old and asked if I can be like an intern, but I didn't know what an intern was. I just asked if I could work there for free. I didn't know child labor laws were a thing, but apparently neither did they.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm not saying anything. That was a long time ago. I went to high school with this idea of starting of starting a TV network, and I pitched this idea to my high school. My senior year, it got funded and created. So that was
Nice.
pretty cool to bring like equipment in. My first credit in TV was my high school yearbook, where I was producer and writer. Back when VHS absolutely ruled and counted. Like if it's funny to think like, oh, he made a mixtape. Everyone can make a mixtape, but I still hold on to those tapes. Playlists, I have no clue where those playlists are anymore, but the tapes, I promise you, are in the shoebox under the bed, held forever. I come from this world of like, the 90s where media and cable was booming, the Y2K, where social media and cable kind of merged. I got to MTV after Michael Jackson put his foot down and said, support other artists.
Yeah.
Like, kill the we're a rock brand narrative and like support everybody or support nobody. I got to MTV in 98 when Yo MTV Raps was already on air. The president of the network was a woman. Like everything about what I learned in corporate, like in front of my face, just felt opposite.
Huh.
And I went in with this idea of creating talent development, and I wanted to work with the people who were already there to nurture and create more. And from our department came Osbournes and Newlyweds and Punk'd. And I got to be honest, it's just because I believed in myself. My mom told me that the way I was going to get into the industry was if I found a casting director in Times Square. Like that was the life force direction that I was given.
Yeah.
But I believed her.
Yeah.
I chose to trust her. And you know what happens when you choose to trust somebody? For better or for worse, by the way. I'm coming out of a bad relationship because I chose to trust. So bad version of trust. Good version of trust is I made that happen. I saw a casting ad. It said MTV Times Square, Whitney Houston. I'm like, sign me up.
Right.
I go, Whitney pulls me out of the crowd. I ask, my question that MTV gives me is, what was it like recording with Mariah Carey on the Prince of Egypt soundtrack? Whitney goes, oh, I'm not answering that question. Give me someone else. And I was like, I am fully capable of asking more than one question.
Yeah.
But instead I responded with, I just launched this database where I started getting models and actors and dancers in the tri-state area together so I can send them casting notices, because I knew that they weren't getting the notices. I knew they wanted the projects, but they didn't know where to find them, and I did. And that turned into casting It's Not Right, But It's Okay, that music video. And then that week I got called by MTV to cast the audience for a very Busta Rhymes Christmas special.
Wow.
A week later was Blink 182 Naked Bike Race in the studio, and then Tom Green. And then I stayed at MTV for 10 years and brought people into television, brought humanity back into like cable. I started by finding representation for small groups of people and eventually grew the space to where you could just represent your damn self.
Yeah.
You don't need to represent just a community because we're building enough space and time for all of it. You asked me a simple question. I got deep, but like that's how I feel about
Thank you for sharing. That's a powerful story that reminds us that confidence can unlock many doors. All right. You need to believe that you can do it, that you have what it takes to be your best self and to do it well. And so thank you for sharing. And I'm curious, when did podcasting get introduced into your journey as a advisor to the stars? And when did you realize you can use podcasting to help build brands?
2006, I got a phone call from Fat Man Scoop, God rest his soul, who since passed. Fat Man Scoop, probably the most famous hook he's created ever is you got a $50 bill, put your hands up, you got a $100 bill. I mean, like, he's a prolific DJ. Yeah. And I got to work really closely with him. And in 2005, 2006, to be in podcasting, you needed to have proximity to like professional audio equipment. So like the first podcasters, by the way, I mean, the godfather of podcasting, you know, comes from being an MTV VJ. A lot of the first early podcasters I knew were either DJs or artists themselves, or DJs, VJs, or artists themselves, because they were in the studios overnight. That was the trick, though. If you were in studio overnight, hit record. It doesn't cost anything extra to record. And we're not even recording on tape anymore, so it doesn't even cost anything. And so Scoop and his wife had this idea of, Shonda had this idea of man and wife, a husband and wife show about sex and relationships. And look, I grew up kind of watching MTV a little bit, but like Loveline was rough for me. Like as a gay man, rough. Like my questions about anything that dealt with gay or sex, like that was always there was always a punchline attached to the narrative. So I thought, first and foremost, an actual married couple instead of two straight white guys that aren't married making fun of everybody else's sexuality and like the information they don't. It seemed very mean spirited. I don't know. This show, I loved it from the get-go. But he recorded it overnight at Hot 97, as you did back in 2005, getting ready to go. It was big. This is it. You're hearing it before it drops. You know, like I'm in the inner circle, like minutes before it gets pushed out. And I said, I said, this is sterile. This feels like you went into a studio with your wife and are talking about sex. And like, I wish that like you were at home doing this. Like, I wish this was a conversation you two were having in bed, and I want to hear the springs, or like in the tub and I want to hear the splash, or in the kitchen and I want to hear the sizzle. Like, be a couple, like bring that to life. And they love the idea. Now back then, there weren't a lot of artists that actually owned equipment, like lighting equipment and stuff like that they kept at their home because they would wait for like bigger shoots and they would rent that stuff out. But Clue had equipment. So we went to his home. We shot 4 different scenes. We landed on the bed. The bed was brilliant because the bed I could tour with, the bed I could put on a comedy stage on a Friday night and see hundreds of couples coming in to talk about sex and relationships with these 2 people. By the way, his wife was a licensed sex therapist.
Wow.
He was just a big voice in pop culture. And to be honest, somebody who supported my community and showed up for large scale communities. He was someone that was really intentional with where his energy went. And I really liked that as well. And that was 2005, 2006. That was the first podcast to broadcast TV show I ever developed. It aired on MTV as a late night sex talk show, exactly how I saw it happening. By the way, I took the idea to MTV first. MTV passed. So I took the concept of the podcast downstairs to MTV.com. I pitched it to .com that we could own this property, put it on our landing page, and that this would, because it's a DJ who's creating sex conversations and music, like that just seemed like something we should, be responsible for and tap into. And then I got the $100,000 greenlit to help build out the website and that space. And then I went back upstairs and I said, oh no, y'all, you're not going to guess what I just did. So we bought the website and now we have the rights to man and wife. So we can pass on it again. And that's fine. We have the right to pass on it again because I made sure that if we're going to spend money, we have the right to pick it up as a TV show because you never want to make a mistake and let a show go.
Right.
But if we don't do it, I hear there's a network called Fuse that's starting to come out. BET is starting, 106 and Park gave TRL a run for its money. So they're looking for live programming from their studio. We're all New Yorkers. We know how this can go. So if we don't buy it, someone else will. A little bit of scare tactics back in the day because the responsibilities we start, the responsibilities that we support are the responsibilities that actually make us a network. That's the social network that MTV was building when I was there from 98 to 07. That social network, I know because of social media, we think of things differently, but think of that social network, this artist to artist and fan to fan and fan to artist, like the literal social, what I wish social media would have been, which unfortunately ended up being alternative media. Let's be honest. Social media it's alternative. You couldn't get it on TV, so we put it someplace else. That's changing now. If you're in podcasting and you own your content, all those names, we haven't even dropped too many names in here, but like Beyonce, Mandy Moore, Nick Cannon, Ashton Kutcher, like celebrities whose careers I helped launch through intellectual property. Ashley Simpson, the Osbournes. Well, I'm having no problem gassing myself on my accomplishments.
Listen,
but they don't own those shows. They don't own those shows. Nick Cannon don't own Wild 'N Out. There's a lot of legal around that actually right now because he don't own that show. And that's something that's changed with podcasting. And let me tell you something.
Yeah.
Lean into podcasting. As someone who comes from content creation, most intellectual property, the act of something becoming intellectual property, right? The act of something going from an idea, the I, to intellectual property, an actual tangible property that has laws and legality and structure around it, is the act of creating. And in television, when you sell the idea to the network is when it becomes intellectual property. In podcasting, when you publish it and you put it out, it becomes intellectual property. And let me tell you, we just watched for the last 5 years, Peacock, Paramount, Hulu, Hulu Plus, Hulu Minus, Hulu Divided, Hulu Squared, Hulu to the power of Hulu. And all of it was regurgitated, reused content. The Friends series, Seinfeld. You saw people who own content leveraging those networks. What happens when those networks, when Tubi, when Netflix, and when Hulu don't just double the space in media, but triple the space because they allow creators to put mid-form, long-form, and short-form content on that network. Imagine the power and we say, we want to get paid with advertising. Wait till we're on those platforms.
Come on.
And you own your content. You're getting your licenses done and you're making sure you're street legal to be on TV. You're not using music you shouldn't be using, clips from TV you shouldn't be using because they're going to come after you.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. Like there's a little bit of like a wild, wild west vibe in podcasting now from someone from media. They're going to come get you. And what's going to happen is actually it's happening right now on Spotify. Right now on Spotify, dozens of podcasters a day, probably hundreds, but I don't know that. I know dozens in my life, so probably hundreds in reality. Episodes getting taken down because of music infringement. Yeah. And Spotify is being held responsible for hosting episodes, knowing that there is an infringement in that episode. So Spotify has to take action. Next Apple, next Google.
Right.
So like intellectual property, this is a real serious game. If you're playing it clean, you're going to win because, man, people need your content.
Yeah.
They need it. It's crazy. They wake up, they need it.
Yeah.
You could do what they can't do. They need that. They need you.
Well said, Vinnie. So what is the difference between a podcast being a marketing channel versus a podcast being a brand builder? How can we differentiate between how a podcast can actually build a brand versus just be a marketing channel as an extension of a brand?
I would say to avoid, well, first off, I would avoid creating it as a content channel. So like that's what I hear people talk about a podcast in the context of it being a source and the episodes being resources. And that's the construct that needs to change. You're the source. The podcast is the resource. You're having global conversations with thought leaders every single week, week to week. I don't need to hear you tell me on this episode, new episode, this week on this episode, remove all of those qualifiers of time because none of that is the value of you. I'm sitting here having major conversations. In fact, I'm talking about leadership that's changing because the platforms are changing quicker than ever. And I want to make sure people know how to win awards. Yeah. Because they don't know. They think that if you have to pay, it's a fraud. By the way, Beyonce has to pay for every single Grammy nomination and an award she didn't win. Yeah. She has to pay. I have to pay to be in the Academy of Arts and TV Sciences to qualify to pay extra for the consideration of winning an Emmy,
Yeah.
by the way. So you have to pay. You have to pay. There's a name, image, likeness. If you want to leverage your influence, you have to be able to negotiate it. And this is a really strong, powerful lesson to learn. I know recently the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame reached out to Dolly Parton and wanted to induct her. And she was like, "Oh, child, get my mouth out your name. I mean, get my name out your mouth. Like, this is, I'm a country girl. I don't need to be in stop trying to make money from me on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Country is going to make money from me. I'm going to bring, this is where I want my people, my money, my energy. We have a right to be able to pick and choose. You know, people love mentioning Beyonce, of course. Now she's a global household name seen as success.
Yeah.
Which is cool. When I worked with her in 98, Destiny's Child had just broken up. My last episode on my podcast, which is called I Have a Podcast, is with Beyonce and her father, Matthew, because we specifically talk about the intentional strategy that Destiny's Child had as a group, and then also the divide and conquer, so that those three women would go out and have solo careers. And then the most important part was coming back as Destiny's Child.
Yeah.
And you'll see this happening a couple of times where people work in unison and then go out on their individuality and they come back. And this is a brilliant way to leverage and grow. It not just influence, but community, right? Because now we're dealing with like Beyonce and Kelly and Michelle's solo audiences. And when those get pulled together, that's a community. And now you have 3 solo audiences and a Destiny's Child audience on top of that. That's 4 audiences in one. It's like you're built to grow and share.
Yeah.
This is a difference between being the source and being the resource. It really is. When you're the source, you walk into the room, the project is sold. I don't care what you're selling me, Vin. I want to work with you. I know it's going to change anyway, and you're good at making the change because you're the source. So like, let's go ahead with this project. If I'm the resource, here's the deck, here's the budget, here's all the steps that I'm going to take. I'm proof.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the source, if we think about news, you need the source's approval, right? Here's a resource. Oh yeah, it's so resourceful. Who's it by? What's the source?
Yeah.
The source is Vinnie Potestivo. So if I can be the source, especially with my local news, or maybe with my alma mater, maybe I'm just trying to think of like small businesses that have media that hit a local region. I want to make sure they see me as a source, not as a resource. And sources provide resources. So I create so many different types of reports that I'm constantly just thinking of that no one asks for. You know how artists back in the day, they would write a song, an album based on what they thought their audience knew, and that was that's how they connect. I do the same thing. I learned from the same people. I'm name dropping so much. I learn from the same people. I'm just not coming out with #1 hits. I'm coming up with #1 data reports. I'm coming up with strategy that's changing the game.
Yeah.
Oof. What I can do in TV now versus back then and let you own it, that's powerful.
Yeah. Podcasting is truly an asset. And remember, folks, you are the brand. Yeah. So what role does
You're the
podcast...
network. It's more than the show. It's the network, right?
Yes.
Like act like the network and use those dynamic ads and all the space that you have to create opportunity. Yeah.
So for someone starting out, let's say, I want to start a podcast in 2025. What should they get clear on? And then how does the podcast format and the tone and how do they think about brand perception? How should they be thinking going into this game?
All right. So I guess I'm going to answer this with 3 questions. 3 questions to throw back at you. No, 3 questions to ask yourself to help you figure out what the next step is. 1, how much time do I have? Is this something I can do weekly or monthly? And I like to ask that question first because there's a couple of different ways that I like to bring people into podcast. Like one of my favorite ways to bring, especially C-suites, celebrities, people who just don't have the time to do something monthly, weekly, create like, Nicole Kidman's winning all these awards for like all these like mini series and like they're legit award. Create a mini series, create a finite 3 or 4 episode, the 2025 penultimate digital marketing for podcasters, create the ultimate 4 or 5. It could even be 2. Sometimes I play around with the word podumentary. I don't fully know what that means yet, but like, what does a 3-hour podumentary look like? Like we can go really long form instead of just coming up with so many episodes. Doesn't matter. It's all going to change. It's all different. So create what we can, not what we should. Create what feels like the right length of time. So now you have this idea of what I'm trying to do first and foremost is break the idea of needing a weekly, monthly, daily podcast. So out of the gate, I'm saying, let's just like stop what everyone else is doing. Let's see how we're going to do it. So do you have time? If you don't have a lot of time, I like this idea of a few episodes, lock that in. Now you're in podcasting. So now you've got a podcast. And then what I do is I put you on a podcast tour, a junket. I use a matchmaking service like Podmatch that's going to connect you to lots of skills. Yes. It's literally like the Podmatch is the secret weapon in podcasting right now. Look, you have to pay to be on it, but that's the thing.
Yeah.
People who pay show up.
Yeah.
Trust me. I've tried to book myself on lots of podcasts on platforms that didn't require the host to pay, and like I'm glad someone got my my pitch letter, if they did, because now they have a really good example of a pitch letter, but I didn't hear back from them. I hear back from a lot more. My rate of return is very high on Podmatch, and I help my clients, and I have a creator hub where I help anybody looking for opportunities to grow in podcasting do that. So I'm very happy to help people in my creator hub with that. But Podmatch is a place where I go with the intention of scaling my personal brand. And I meet people, not podcasters. I meet people. And some people will say, oh, well, how do you know if the podcast is right? How do you know if it's like the right podcast for you? I'm like, I know if it's the right one for me if I'm on it. Right? Like, a weird question, but like, what do you think about my energy that I can't sustain being myself and wherever I am? Now, I've done the work. I don't talk about TV and celebrity brand building with Beyonce and Mandy Moore and how to create a TV show that hits billions like Punk'd. I don't talk about some of the successes that I've had in that format. I whittled it down and widened it to visibility. Like that's the thing that Beyonce needed from me was visibility. She needed a chance to do something she hadn't done before to show people she can do quite a lot. And I got to be a part of the team that cast her in Carmen, a hip opera, gave her first leading role in a film. How freaking cool is that? And I'm gonna tell you, when you're someone's first, you never forget.
Yeah.
You never forget. And it's a gift to have been at MTV from 98 to 07 because like Ricky Martin, Jennifer Lopez, Beyonce. I mean, there's some really Mandy Moore, Ashley Simpson, Jesse Simpson. So many brilliant people came through that portal because they needed to in 90s to get on TV. They didn't do it because they had a choice. They did it because that was where we made impact.
Yeah.
And MTV was doing that before I got there. I just listened, by the way. I listened. I was in the room. My job was to cast the VJs. I finished casting a VJ, then I would go down and train them. So I went down to the studio one day because we had a new VJ who was working on a new show. will.i.am was the guest. They recorded the whole 30-minute show. And at the end of the show, Will goes to his manager. This kid just came out of college. He has a 30-minute. I have two number one songs on this hit. How do I host my own show?
Yeah.
And everyone in that room looked at me. And I was like, oh, this... I know 2 phone calls and we'll do this. Before I left, I said, Will, what's your schedule over the next week and a half if I can turn this around really quickly? Because we have the studio. So like lights up, we're ready to record. So like I'm going to pitch this, but I need to know from you what your availability is. And I didn't give him months. I said in the next week or so. I don't think I knew better to be like, don't give a celebrity like a week notice to come up. But I was like, chip chop, your idea, let's go. And he stepped up, I stepped up, MTV stepped up. What that did for hosts moving forward, Christina Milian, Nick Cannon, Willa Ford. I mean, I'm just going through a whole list. That sounds like that's so Y2K. That's like sounds like a playlist. But like being able to bring real people into the mix and let them be themselves, that was something the media wasn't letting artists do that MTV suddenly was. That was I mean, an amazing life lesson, but what a way to learn how to work and collaborate with creatives and creators.
Yeah. I love the way that you have leveraged the influence of individuals through video and also content. Now, I'm going to pivot this way. You personally Are you a fan of listening to podcasts or watching videos? And then we'll go professionally. What's best for building a brand, audio or video?
Well, I would say I probably watch more videos than listen to podcasts.
Okay.
If I'm going to consume content from the point of pure consumption, like I'm just being a normal consumer, not like we're Cat Vinnie, but like how does Vinnie show up and consume content? I watch how-to videos if I'm going to watch a video, but I'll watch a how-to video about how to build a bunker 12 feet under in my backyard. I'll watch how to create gluten. I love a process. I love understanding the way people break down processes. I love the way people approach processing and processes. Like, so I could literally watch something get made from like a time lapse. Oh, sign me up. Like I'm a sucker for a time lapse. That'll grab my eye in a heartbeat. I think I don't listen to so much video. I mean, I don't listen to so much podcasting. Yeah, I don't know why. Actually, it's spring. We're in spring now when we're recording this as you're watching. So I've been hitting the gym. Actually, I listen to podcasts when I'm at the gym and I don't need to look and I can't look at something.
Right.
I tried listening to podcasts in the car, but either they're like my friends or I just like get into like a conversation. I don't know. It's very hard for me to focus in the car.
Got it.
Yeah.
So professionally,
I'm music in the car.
So professionally, do you think it's best for brands to use audio and video to build a brand, or would you lean heavy on the video side and ignore the audio side?
I would do both, and they're mutually exclusive. So like what I wouldn't do is like a video podcast where video is a through line to the podcast. Like this is to me feels like a video podcast as there's a presentation and an awareness of the visuality of it.
Yeah.
What I wouldn't do is take this podcast and then cut it down into smaller pieces and quote unquote socialize those smaller pieces because like to be honest, that's not social. That's like a coming attraction. So call it a coming attraction, call it a trailer. And maybe I'll be a little bit more lean. Look at what happens on Netflix. You think I don't watch trailers?
Right.
Very happily, but I want to watch trailers called trailers, not called social media, because like as I mentioned earlier, I took a little jab and I feel bad about it, but it's the truth. Social media is alternative media.
Yeah.
It's where we went when we couldn't get things on TV for a long time. And now that's changing because power of the creator is really in our content. I'm able to get people on TV now. I'm able to get, by the way, you want to know my favorite thing to do with podcasting right now? You know those ads that you have to watch on Hulu, Peacock, Paramount Plus that you can't skip because like we're paying the $7, not the $19 version of the access of the boot. They're must watch, non-skippable, non-clickable, non-tappable. 1,000 of those cost $25. So for $50, 2,000 must watch 30-second video ads that you can geo-target, demo target, time target. So here's where I think the win is. What kind of people are usually in commercials? Like either actors who are kind of celebrities, spokespeople who are experts or become experts, leaders who are experts and become, celebrities. Maybe that's the cycle. I don't know. But I thought like $25 for 1,000, $50 for 2,000 video ads on Peacock, Hulu, or Paramount. Like that's a sexy place for me as a podcaster to be. I'm not going to grow my podcast brand on those platforms. I'm going to be the host of I Have a Podcast, the number one podcast in career and creative for the career and creator economy, talking about Shure microphones. This is not true, but this is what I would do. Yeah. So for 30 seconds, I'm a podcaster. If you know me, I've been on this, my shows. I've helped these artists, booga. And then this is the podcast microphone I like. If you like it, here's our QR code. Get it.
Come on.
Now what I can do is an affiliate link.
Yeah.
So now I'm making money on television. By the way, TV is that cheap. The moral of the story, television is that cheap that for $50 I can get you on television on those. And those are sexy networks. Those are not on display on a website or something like that. You stand out when you're on here. It's the same reason why I like to show people how to get on Giphy. It's free. Yeah. You get an account. You show up. You put my name in. I'm jumping around like a crazy guy. You type in the word LinkedIn. I have 8 of the top 10 searches,
Come on.
video searches. Yo, and the cool part for that was in search results. But when search results got amplified by AI action,
Right.
now when someone mentions LinkedIn, CapCut pulls my video because I embody what LinkedIn is, because there's one image of me holding a LinkedIn mug.
Yeah.
And that's the video that I see everywhere on TikTok when people talk about LinkedIn.
Let's go.
So like being part of that ecosystem, you want to talk about leveraging your influence.
Right.
I'm not everywhere. I'm just where I'm meant to be. I decided where I'm meant to be.
Yeah.
I chose where I'm meant to be. Self-determination. You know, Google doesn't tell me who I am. LinkedIn doesn't tell me who I am. I tell it, and I make sure I do.
Yeah.
Those are the levers that I like to show people how to do it. And I do all of that in my creator hub as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. No, so talk about your own podcast and what your show is about and where we can find it.
Oh, you're awesome. It's ihaveapodcast.com. It's also where I talk about all things podcasts. So podcasters to me are leaders, hosts, and guests, and they are people who are not afraid to put their mic in front of their face and put their words out in front of a community and take action. Like, I will support someone who does that as long as that action supports my community directly. And I'm being very intentional with my words here. Some people feel like we shouldn't be talking about politics. I'm not one of them.
Yeah.
I'm being intentional in who I support. That's my choice. It's my freedom, and it's my ability to do it because I own my content. My content series, to be honest, is called I Have a Podcast because that's what my clients want, is a podcast. So I called it what they want, and we all say it. So a shared experience is a great way to kick off a friendship. So you have a podcast, I have a podcast. I just got it registered. So I have those 4 words now signed with the USPTO.
Let's go.
And am covered on a pretty high level now with the little R and the circle on it. You know, that's pretty cool to make it a brand like that. Currently can be found on Delta, on American,
yes,
on probably a dozen CTV networks. CTV meaning connected television. So anything that has to connect to the internet is called CTV, connected TV. So Hulu, any of your apps on a screen that isn't going through like broadcast and cable. Connected television is what it's called, CTV. I also have a radio show version of it, and I Have a Podcast is an amazing community on LinkedIn where I'm connecting creatives and creators and business experts together, which is a really unique way to sort of bring people together by acknowledging what their output is. I go back in time with the people that I built my career with, and
nice.
I try to make sense of it. My guests are Mandy Moore, Beyonce, Matthew Knowles, Christina Milian. I'm excited for a whole batch of new episodes that are about to come. It's literally now that's so 2001 to 2007.
Yeah.
Like if you have those albums, get ready for that's what the next episode, next season of I Have a Podcast is. And I never thought that this creator economy would flourish and bloom into what it was. So I wasn't being as intentional as I am in this next wave with some of the questions, some of the actual things we can learn, not just like expose answers and stories to things that I knew behind closed doors that never saw the light of day. Because part of like sharing what I've learned is like, again, letting you know what happens behind closed doors. Like that's actually my special skill set, because I have been behind some closed doors. I'm like, yo, you need to add. When I found out the Osbournes were getting $1 million bonus check when their number hit a certain number, I turned right over to Nick Cannon. I was like, Nick, you got to put this in your contract. You're going to put in. I think back then it was like if it got over a share of 7, which is like back then that would have been about 7 million viewers, which is crazy to think of a cable TV show getting 7 million viewers now. But that's how quick time has changed, and that's, for better or for worse, why I think there are some really cool opportunities on television for podcasters, especially if you own your content.
Amazing.
And owning your content as a podcaster is the place to start.
Yeah, phenomenal. Your podcast is truly an asset that has value. And so take your craft and message seriously. So, and you mentioned,
you're good, by the way. Like you've got quality going on here. Like I want to point out, it's really easy to mess up video.
It is.
So I wasn't going to say this to you earlier with that question, but like I would start off with audio because it's kind of hard to mess up with audio unless the quality isn't there. But like with video, ratio, the frame, there's so many creative things that can go wrong. The graphics don't look right, whatever. If I was starting a podcast now, though, what I would do is create an audio podcast that is an audio podcast, and I would document me creating that audio podcast.
Ooh.
And I would never repurpose the audio podcast content to be like coming up. I would use the documentation of what I'm doing as proof of action. Like that's being social. Like that,
Wow.
I'm not repurposing the episodic information. I'm shooting it wide and fat. I want to see all the things go wrong, the cat, the dog, the kid, all the things that, all the potential things that could have come into frame. I want to keep that nice and open.
Yeah.
And because that's how you grow the audience, is nice and open. Otherwise it feels too claustrophobic. We're in like a small room. It's too claustrophobic.
That's you know what? I might implement that advice.
Yeah. You'd be double on it too. Mr. Wonderful, the shark from Shark Tank, Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary. Oh man, his social media is my favorite because he goes on like all these real money shows, and he has business on the top and pleasure on the bottom.
Yeah.
He's wearing like, shark board shorts and then like a business suit. His social media, he has what you saw on TV, and then him in his like bathing suit, but with a suit top on. It's just like, it's something that like we can it's something we can relate to. Anyone on Zoom.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah. So before I let you go, Vinnie, and thank you for sharing transparently and generously with your expertise and passion, what legacy do you hope to build through the voices that you are amplifying?
Oh, it's done. I mean, like, are you kidding? More legacy? Are you kidding? There's going to, what a burden to sit in the privilege of hard work, surrounded by the voices of people who've helped me get here. I have to tell you something. I love that question. I'm so thrown off by it that I'll say it this way. I don't know what I'm going to cry actually. I don't know what the future has in store, but I know for a fact I'm going to be part of how it gets made. And I already know who some of the people are that I want to make it with. And like that's like the biggest power ever. I'm a kid, I got my all superheroes get their superpowers from trauma. So like, I just want to go, there are a lot of things that had to happen to me to become a people pleaser and to put everyone first and to empathetically try to spot something that doesn't exist yet and create it with meaning so that it can sustain time. I don't create content based on like what I think you want right now. That's why The Challenge is still the #1 show on MTV. It's why Wild 'N Out is still doing what it's doing. It's why The Housewives are still doing what they're doing on those shows. We created something that can be maintained in its legacy forever through more voices.
Yeah.
Shout out to Menudo, right? The original inspiration of if you build it, it can change.
Yeah.
And I like that idea. And it's a really cool question. When Wild 'N Out got greenlit, it was a personal victory for me because Nick had already gotten a pass. And Nick and Christina Milian were dating at the time. Over the Christmas break, they went and recorded a tape to show the powers that be at MTV what they were actually talking about. And then we got to pick up from that. And then we got to, a pilot and then the series. I had no clue the amount of jobs that show was going to create for BIPOC creators, for marginalized creators, both on and off camera, let alone the communities that came together. I left MTV in 2007. Wild 'N Out, I think, went on a quote unquote hiatus. In 2007, the community finds these short videos and brings it back on Vine. The community brings Wild 'N Out back into the mainstream. Now, MTV got burned by YouTube with the Janet Jackson, Justin Timberlake. Like when that happened with us, YouTube said this was the most rewatched moment in pop culture history. That burned us a lot. That hurt us. So when this new information from Vine starts popping out that like Wild 'N Out and we're not getting paid, that's how they look at it. We're not getting paid. What Vine's getting paid, they're running ads and we're not getting paid. That's all they cared about. But the community brought that back.
Yeah.
And the community brought it back. MTV saw that the community brought it back and then brought it to MTV too. So like create what you can.
Yeah.
Not what you should. What you can is deep in here. What you should is respond to the questions that are out there. What you can is create questions that you're prepared to support. And I'm happy to support you both on LinkedIn, or I have a free creator hub. Literally go to the creator hub, CreatorHub.pro is the name, or CreatorHubPro.com. I'll give you the link in bio. Happy to support the people who support my community and the community that we are building for a better tomorrow, because I do believe that we're guaranteed tomorrow.
Yeah.
You're not going to win me over with the scare tactics that tomorrow ain't happening. Trust me, everything I'm doing today is predicated on making tomorrow a better day for us.
Yeah.
So tomorrow, and if it doesn't happen, I won't be here, and then I won't even know I got it wrong. And I'd rather live life with those odds than thinking
Vinnie.
that tomorrow's not going to come.
Yes.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you, Vinnie, for sharing your passion and your heart with us today. We're truly inspired on how we can use podcasting to build our brand and also to make the world a better place. Once again, give a website or a place for folks to connect with you on social media.
CreatorHub.pro.
All right. And we look forward to connecting with you and being inspired by your content. And thank you so much for just being yourself and sharing transparently here on Leverage Your Influence. And we look forward to having another wonderful conversation on our next time.
Yes, I got invited back. Yes.